Hello, good afternoon. Okay, so I'm Professor called Debono from the Faculty of ICT, and I welcome you to this panel on Eskills education and learning. And with me today, I have three panelists. Okay, the first one would be Carmel Cachia. Okay, so Carmel is the Chief Administrator of the Eskills Foundation. Okay, he's a member of Council of the University of Malta and a board member of the Center of Distributed Leisure Technologies, Institute of Aerospace Technologies, and the Euro-Mediterranean Center, all within the University of Malta. So, Carm, have a seat. Next, we have Natalie Smolenski. Hi, Natalie. Natalie is an anthropologist who leads business development for the blockchain technology firm Machine Learning. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And finally, we have Dr. Joshua Ellul. Joshua is the chairperson of the Malta Digital Innovation Authority, okay, and director of this DLT, and senior lecturer with the Department of Computer Science at the University of Malta. So all of you welcome to this panel. Okay, so I'll ask a few questions to you. So I'll start with you, Joshua. So the Center for Distributed Ledger Technologies at the University of Malta was founded to bring together experts from different backgrounds. Can you tell us how this idea came about? And is the center preparing students for the challenges ahead?
Yeah, so like Carl said, we bring in students from different walks of life. Students coming from an ICT technical background, students coming a business and finance background, and students coming from a legal background. And they're going to go into a master's specifically on blockchain and DLT. And the reason why we bring these different professions together into the same master's is because the blockchain and DLT field, it's no longer about specializing in your single area in isolation, because smart contracts are eventually going to be integrated into our legal world. And likely when we're regulating technology, our lawyers need to understand the technology. And similarly, when we're implementing blockchain and DLT into our business models, the business leaders need to understand the technology. So the whole master's degree is about giving a broad range of expertise to the different professions in the blockchain and DLT world, but also allowing the students to dig deeper into their area of specialization, specifically within blockchain and DLT.
Natalie, the success of digital economy depends on trust. Okay, we're hearing a lot of blockchain here. What role will education take to instill trust in these digital systems and the digital ecosystem?
You know, when it comes to trust in technology, people tend to take a very pragmatic approach. And so they learn how to trust based on use. You know, in the same way you trust a hammer by using it, you trust your cell phone because it works to regularly make calls or to connect to the web. Blockchain technology will be trusted once people can rely on it to execute fundamental operations that are necessary to their day-to-day lives. Where education can play a role is thinking more deeply about the underpinnings of that trust. So structurally, what conditions have to be put in place in order for this ecosystem to work, and how is it different from previous ecosystems that maybe have exploited that trust for the sake of pragmatism, but that have resulted in abuses of trust, which blockchains are designed to remedy.
So, Carm, the Eskills Malta Foundation is contributing to decrease the digital skills gap through influencing policy, right, supporting digital education, increasing awareness about the ICT profession, and identifying skills needed for the workforce. What are the main activities that the foundation is planning?
Well, well, we tend to be in the middle of education and industry. So we try to bridge that gap in one way or the other. Of course, we've got part of as well of information society where it comes to citizens as well, because they need to be skilled enough for their well-being and for also contributing for their life. But, well, first of all, we do study what the requirements are for the industry. And we do it formally, and that we make sure that the educational sector is reviewing that. We also are involved in increasing the IT sector in Malta by giving careers advice to educators so that we train the trainers, if you know what I mean. Of course, probably one of the most important things that we've done is that we have launched an Eskills national strategy this year, which gives us the direction and the different pieces where we should work on. And this includes as well upskilling the SMEs for the emerging technologies that is happening. As we know, there's a digital transformation happening, and we're totally part of that, because when you transform technology, you also transform the teaching and the knowledge and the skills and competencies. So we basically make a lot of number of actions in that respect.
Okay, Joshua, the Center for DLTs yesterday launched the multidisciplinary master's program in blockchain and DLT. Now this is taking students from ICT background, business and finance, and law and regulation. What skill set is needed for each stream, and what will the students learn?
Yeah, so depending upon the stream that the student is going to take, we obviously depend that they come from that particular background. If they're going to specialize, let's say, in ICT, we would expect that the student has a background in ICT. So the skill set that we accept from the students is an undergraduate within the particular area of specialization. We don't specifically require it. However, we would expect that the students are coming to the degree program with an open mindset to embrace the fact that we do need multidisciplinary curriculum within our particular fields. And this is something that we've started with this particular master's. However, it's something we should also start to think in other different degree programs as well, because IT is being immersed into all different sectors, and it's not just about DLT where we need to look at the business and the legal aspects. Now, throughout the program, our students will be both exposed to elements to allow them to dig deeper, let's say, into the technology, such as smart contracts, but then, let's say, our lawyers and our business students, but then they'll be able to dig really deep into the legal aspects. So that is the main message. We're giving them this broad view, this broad introduction of the peripheral areas, but then allowing for them to specialize, to become the masters, the future experts in blockchain and DLT. So, and the idea is that we create this ecosystem where when a lawyer is talking about concepts pertaining to the technology, the IT expert understands why there are certain legal requirements that the lawyers are implicating. And the whole idea came about when we were helping the government formulate the regulation. The techies and the legal experts, we use different terminology. We have different ways of working on problems. We really need our different professionals to start to understand each other and understand different problems that face the different professions that exist within this ecosystem.
Natalie, discussing and educating people on blockchain is a difficult task, right? Can you provide us with some insight on how to reach out to people with different backgrounds and get them to appreciate such a technology?
Yes. So for people from non-technical backgrounds, the best way to help them understand blockchain technology is to approach it from the question of value. So how will blockchain technology materially make their lives easier, better? How will it make processes that today take them a very long amount of time and perhaps cost a lot of money, how do we reduce that to seconds? How do we make some of those processes free? People really understand that. They understand convenience and approachability. For more technical audiences, the question then becomes one of often just talking about architectures. So DLT and blockchain is not all one thing. There are many, many different approaches depending on what the network is being designed to do. And technical audiences often appreciate the ability to base your conversation on what they're trying to achieve or what a particular network is solving for.
Okay, Karen, we speak a lot about e-skills and digital literacy. Okay? We know that Malta ranks high in the European index. However, when it comes to more specialized ICT workforce, okay, that we seem to need always more and more. So how do you explain this? And how can we improve on it?
Well, I think, first of all, we've got to see the positive of things, because that means that the digital sector in Malta is strong. It is the same in every European country. There is lack of resources and also a gap in between the taught ICT and the practices. So we are actually like Europe in there. We're better because, of course, in the digital index, because we do other things that make it work easier in Malta, but we also because of the good people that we have. How can we get better? I think the world in education is changing. If you go abroad, they tell you that all education must include work placements, must have more contact with the industry, somehow do that extra effort so that when people come out of education, they are more honed in on the requirements. But as well, I think we need to listen. When a student from secondary till maybe in Malta masters, there's about 6 years. So unless this person starts working during, then there's quite a hell lot of time to wait. So I think what we could do is give more weight to certifications as well, because some people they don't want to go to tertiary education. And therefore, maybe we can improve them by doing industry certifications, which are the top certifications. We talk about cybersecurity, we talk about, blockchain, Oxford University, and you find them all. They do short cycle certifications, and that gets them on board quicker. We need to do that, or else we will remain the same. Other European countries have started on this quite some time ago. You find a lot of people who are, in fact, the percentage of people with a degree in Malta is high. With masters, it's high. It's 30%. With certifications, it's really little. So I think that's one of the things that we could take advantage of. Doesn't mean that somebody doesn't continue to study, because probably when they start working, even with certifications earlier on, they will realize that they need to upskill themselves to a degree. So I think that will improve our numbers, let's put it this way.
So Joshua, this DLT has tailored study units for non-technical audiences. Can you tell us a little bit about this and what is the uptake?
Yep. So besides the master's program, where we are taking in technical lawyers, business, to specialize specifically in the field, we've also created units for the general public to give the public an idea of what blockchain is and what it means to them. And exactly like you were saying, Carm, we need to provide an easy entry for people to reskill and upskill themselves. And one potential avenue is to provide short courses that allow for them to be exposed to these types of new emerging fields. So the uptake in this particular unit was overwhelming. So we had over 100 students inside of this general public unit. And by the end of it, students were all saying, when is the follow-up unit? And we haven't had time to structure a follow-up unit yet. But within our masters, we have a number of different units that can also be taken by the general public. So if there are if there are non-programmers out there who want to learn smart contract programming, we have a unit for that. And it can give people an idea of what sort of challenges exist within this particular sector. At the end of this particular unit, I wouldn't advise you to go write smart contracts, but at least you'll have an appreciation of it, and then you can further study later on to specialize if that is the path you want to undertake. So we're allowing for reskilling and upskilling as well.
Okay, Natalie, the government of Malta has been very proactive in embracing blockchain and AI and opening it up to businesses in these new technologies. How do you see the mix of personal identity, technology, and government evolving in the coming years?
Yeah. So all governments are shifting towards digital forms of identification. And it's really up to us to decide whether the new digital identification programs that get rolled out around the world end up being mechanisms for ever greater social control or more empowerment for the individual. And this is why at Learning Machine, we architect from the principle of digital self-sovereignty. This does not mean that the sovereignty of governments is in any way taken away or diminished. What it means, though, is that the individual is similarly empowered to be sovereign over when and how they use their identity credentials and to return back to them control of their personal data. We've seen actually quite a bit of interest in digital self-sovereignty from the Maltese government already, not only through our work with the Ministry for Education and Employment on the first self-sovereign blockchain certification program in the world, but also Identity Malta recently released a preliminary market consultation for a self-sovereign digital identity system for the citizens of Malta. And so Malta actually is pioneering that individual empowerment side of digital identity and serving as a really important counterweight to other governments that are taking completely the opposite approach. And this is why what Malta does in the next 5 years can actually have an outsized impact on the international stage.
Okay, Carm, the future is clearly a more digital world, right? So do you think that Malta will maintain the momentum to remain at the forefront of new technologies? And how will we manage to keep on feeding this industry with the adequate skills?
Very difficult questions, I would say.
Well,
Yes.
you only have 1 minute.
As well. Well, I think we will maintain. I think we will even do better. I mean, even the EU says that Malta is one of the leading countries, actually, and that's when it comes to technology and skills and these. So yes, we will keep. How can we keep it? Well, I think we need to transform further. I think we have a good adaptability sense in Malta. So, we're small. We've passed our history, passed through a lot of hands, and we needed to transform ourselves in any case. Sometimes even harder. And I think also in technology and education. Technology, we do harness it. We've got a good university, good colleges, so the education is there. We need to transform it further. Kindly conclude. So I think we need to do more to align ourselves with what is needed out there in the industry.
Okay,
Thank
so Carm, Natalie, and Joshua, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. For our next panel, when will banks be adopting cryptocurrencies? I'd like to introduce Felix Herman, co-founder at Salamandex.
Hello. welcome to this discussion with the topic, nothing cryptic about crypto, when will banks be adopting cryptocurrencies? Let me welcome to the stage our first guest. Thank you very much. Here we have Przemek from BitBay, BitBay Exchange, European Exchange. Our second guest, Maria from Garda Wallet. Our third panelist, Dejan, CEO of Eligma. And our final panelist, just recently swatched, is Douglas of Bbox Exchange, jumping in for IOFI. There we go. So welcome everybody to this panel. The topic we're going to be discussing today is nothing cryptic about crypto, when will banks be adopting cryptocurrencies? I would like to start with this topic by picking it apart a little bit, analyzing it a little bit, so we got an idea of where we're going to go, whether we don't get lost just in a random discussion about anything. So let's dig right into the question. The question is, when will banks be adopting cryptocurrencies? I think there are two key aspects that we need to clarify first in order to dive in, which is first the adoption part. What adoption are we talking about? Are we saying this is going to be a broad adoption, the kind of adoption that the crypto community imagines to take place? Or are we talking about a narrow adoption, which is, well, kind of the question, is it more an evolution of finance or is it an actual revolution? I think generally in this environment it makes sense to address the actual broad adoption of cryptocurrencies, the way that the crypto community imagines it to be, because the alternatives are really not too relevant for the candidates here. That's what we're all about. We want to foster the mass adoption. That's what we all stand for. The second part now is, on the other hand, though, if you want to address alternative scenarios where you say, hey, I'm not even certain there's going to be a mass adoption after all, feel free to dive into that as well. On the other hand, we have the when. What does the when mean? We can't really pin it down. We can't pick a point in time and say this is exactly when the mass adoption of cryptocurrencies happened. We can only, in retrospect, say, oh, actually, back then we realized that was the tipping point. So why don't we start with jumping right in. Dejan, I would like to address the first question to you. We can't pin down the when. So let's start with what's happening right now. What do you see? What actions, what processes of banks are you witnessing as an industry insider on this path to the adoption of cryptocurrencies by banks?
All right, so I see that they are probably now in the phase of getting all the data and understanding how really everything works. So what we in the community are trying to achieve is educate them, give them as many information as possible so that they understand it's not about to have it actually, or to go towards crypto or blockchain or whatsoever. So I think we're now in the phase that they are slowly trying to be part of this. They don't want to miss out. But there are different layers of adoption when it comes to the bank. Well, definitely, I think people and specific countries will push forward the adoption. So where the need is for crypto bigger than in other countries, probably these countries will have crypto before others. But in general, it's a long process, and we need to understand. It's like the dinosaur walking, and you want to put him on a different track. So we need to understand it's going to take a while, and they also we need to understand they need to see a beneficial thing for them as well. So I think we need to push governments first, and then governments can influence in the banks or whatsoever.
All right. So you generally would say there's definitely some action from the crypto community that we should see, but generally this process seems to be already taking place. All right. Maybe does somebody else here have maybe some experience he wants to share when it comes to banks, how you approach them, what you see, and how you may have already interacted with them when it comes to this. Maybe you, Przemek?
Yeah, sure.
Want to contribute?
We have like 6 years of experience dealing with banks.
Yes.
As a crypto exchange to crypto to fiat mainly. We are dealing with fiats all the time. So we found a lot of difficulties to work with them. So there are basically two reasons: that they don't have a clear regulation themselves, so they cannot really serve us as a client. So what we would love to see is the general regulation all over the world, as we work globally, that the rules apply to most of the countries, so we can service the clients directly, to let them deposit and do withdrawals with their own currencies, not only the majors, also the minors. Now it's a hell of a lot better than before, so this is a good thing.
Okay.
But it's purely seen that we make some progress, but still we need to wait probably, let's say, a year, 2, 3. I wouldn't be too optimistic, as a year ago we had a similar discussion here on the stage, and we were very optimistic.
Yes.
In 2018, that it's gonna be just here, another few months, and we're gonna be great. There are still countries where there are very few where the regulation is, that we can follow the regulator, and there are very few banks who can actually service us. So until this change will happen, we still need to kind of play around, try to find the best way for clients to take advantage of the cryptocurrencies. It's not only changing crypto to crypto, holding that for the purpose of getting rich somewhere there in the future, but let's get people use it on a daily basis to do the payments, to pay for things, for goods, and then exchange it as well. Once we do that, then it should be straightforward, because banks will also see that the flow of money, it's getting bigger and bigger, so there's a chance to make some profit for them, and this is the only thing that will force them to move towards the crypto community and us, basically. So another thing is that we see the adoption that they do inside of the banks. So they take advantage of the blockchain in general, but what they're supposed to do for us in reverse is to serve us as clients. So I see kind of disproportion at the moment, that they take the advantage of what we love, and we cannot use their services that they're supposed to give to us. So this needs to be changed.
All right. So
unless we have a revolution instead of evolution.
I see. All right. So what you're essentially saying is the banks are trying to get in here. They're approaching this because they realize otherwise they would be missing out. You think generally there should be some get together, there should be mutual support, but at the same time you should still be aware of like the potential implications of that, either if you go into an evolutionary or revolutionary way. Okay. I would like to ask the same question to you, Douglas, because, well, you're representing Bbox Europe, also an exchange. Yeah. What is your past relationship with banks, with regulators been? Did you feel like they tried really to approach the mass adoption of cryptocurrencies reasonably? And did you interact with them on high side? And was it a positive relationship?
Yeah, I mean, for me, from my perspective, it seems like it's important to almost differentiate or delineate on whether you have traditional banks or even disruptive banks. I think, especially in the European market, I think maybe everyone here has already seen that there's a huge rise in disruptive banks, and they almost need to get ahead in some sort of competitive advantage. So you see a lot of them doing some kind of in-house crypto exchange as well, which is amazing for us in terms of the crypto community, great for adoption as well. I also believe, on both sides, it's important to take note that we should be wary on both sides, whether it's the crypto side looking to learn from a more mature, more regulated industry, or even for bankers also to work with the crypto space as well, to learn from each other. And I think, the past few days has been absolutely fantastic at the Delta team. The Delta Summit 2019 has been absolutely incredible, fantastic. So exactly these kind of events, these sorts of agglomeration economics are really great in terms of, I've seen some huge institutions here as well myself, as well as some exchanges, so if everyone comes together, talks, discusses as well, I think that's a great first step.
All right, so your approach definitely is more collaboration than competition.
Yeah.
Even when it comes to this relationship between crypto and the banks.
Exactly.
All right, interesting. Maybe from the perspective of Garda Wallet now, if you can speak for the whole company, what is your take on this? We have the banks who are, in the cases of exchanges, for example, or in our own case as a crypto payment provider, there's a lot of touch points here where we just get in touch with banks, also with regulators all the time. While as a wallet, you could technically say, we're just going to avoid this completely. We're trying to completely get around banks, get around fiat, and create our own closed ecosystem, never with the external fiat component.
Well, I would like to say probably two things. That first of all, I don't consider it some kind of a competition, like banks versus wallets, massive war, everybody hates each other. Definitely not like this. It's more of general point of adoption, and it's more of a thing that wallets right now, developed cryptocurrency wallets, can probably actually offer more than traditional bank systems. They work in the places where banks don't. They work in the ways that banks don't. They work with more currencies. This is kind of more handy. But when we talk about cryptocurrency adoption, all of you mentioned the fact that traditional banks are working with crypto, and they're starting this process. So this when, from the topic of our conversation, is already happening right now. But on the other hand, the main name of our panel is nothing cryptic about crypto, which kind of implies that cryptocurrency is still something a little bit in the shadows, and it's still something that didn't get out there enough, and it's still something like kind of strange and not understandable, not regulated at some point. And so from the point of a person working for a cryptocurrency wallet that basically allows people have their own bank in any device that they want to, I see it more not from the point of like making a service to suit everybody, collaborate with the banks and making some kind of like a mega crypto fiat enterprise, but from the point of banks and wallets working together probably on sharing experiences and kind of working together to get this cryptic out, because as long as we consider cryptocurrency something not understood very well, like wallet developers and people working in cryptocurrency wallets obviously understand cryptocurrency more than probably people working in banks right now. Hence you have problems. It takes forever. It's a process that is not regulated very well. It's kind of like very messy at times. And this could be, by collaborating with wallets, with collaborating with exchanges, with you guys all, this can be kind of pinned down to some points that need to be just eliminated and kind of got over. So probably it's a kind of consulting thing. This is not actually creating some kind of like very big service. So from the point of cryptocurrency adoption in general, I believe that it's going really well.
All right.
The fact that we talk about it so much and that it's kind of everywhere in different forms of information, verified, not verified, this is already kind of totally different topic, deserving its own panel or a keynote. But the spreading of information, the fact that the governments are, in some places, quite welcoming towards actually doing some kind of steps. The institutions like banks are considering doing something. There are several cases, like today I was reading about Revolut right before this panel, the fact that they're working with cryptocurrency. This is kind of hype-ish.
Yeah.
Like, oh, crypto is fashionable right now, so we're going to do that. But also it's pretty remarkable when you have something big, institutionalized, and supposedly stable, and you're starting to get crypto world out there. I think that cryptocurrency communities are actually quite into it as well. Everybody wants to eliminate the cryptic thing.
Yeah. All right, so like the essence I get out of this, and you just addressed this point as well, we're literally having this conversation right now. On this panel, the topic is directly entangled. Crypto, banks, how do we get together, or how will they get together? At the same time, it seems like the general vibe here is fundamentally, we're absolutely open to collaborate, to make our vision come true. Now, which is kind of surprising for me, I think, to find this kind of attitude being like the main attitude on a stage. Therefore, I would like to ask you, Dejan, what's your take on this? And maybe did your personal opinion and attitude toward this change? Did you maybe initially, when you entered the crypto space, did you back then did you think, all right, crypto and bank is never going to get together, and I'm not going to help to foster that. I'm going to help to prevent it. Or were you somebody who, for example, from the beginning said, no, this is never going to be a pure revolution that we can like initialize and completely conduct on our own? Should we maybe move towards those banks and try to get together? What's your take on this?
We talked about this before, right? So I don't know. I just think that on the long term, there are just two options. They adopt it or not. If they don't adopt it, it's actually a good thing. We will have to push it as people forward on into these decentralized systems. And that was actually the whole vision about crypto, right? If they adopt it, the adoption is going to be then faster, because the main point... Hello? Okay. The main thing will be when people will start accepting crypto as a monthly salary.
Yeah.
So when you get a salary in crypto, I think many things will start to change. So there are just two things, yes or no. If no, it's going to happen anyway. Mm-hmm. If yes, it's going to happen faster. So that's my opinion, but I could be wrong. What do you think, guys?
All right, that's an interesting attitude. You're saying if we don't get together, crypto is going to take over eventually, and you would be willing to collaborate, but you're not going to move towards them. You would respond to whatever they have to offer. All right then. So this really interests me though. I wonder in your company as Garda Wallet, it's not the youngest project. So did the attitude within your company towards this topic, did it shift? Did you ever at some point try to approach any kind of banks or make any partnerships happen that would eventually foster this mass adoption, but also by including the banks?
We're kind of going from the other way. I would say we're just working on the adoption and on cryptocurrency kind of understanding in general. And I believe that going to the banks and saying like, guys, we're here, and if you really want us, we can kind of explain everything to you, at least as far as we can. This is kind of like a short way, but actually working on the overall image. I actually wanted to mention it before you asked, but it's our job to not only work with the institutions, but work with the whole picture. Yeah. Because institutions are just a part of it. Like, there are people with very different opinions, there are people with very different stands, people living in different countries with different laws. Mm-hmm. But the whole picture needs to be organized, it needs to be kind of put together, and our part in that is be humble, be welcoming, and give enough information, make a good service, and be there for people who are in need of more information, more help, more consultancy, more kind of openness to this world. And I believe that we're doing a pretty good job with that. Okay. We don't stop there. I don't know what's going to be next, honestly. Yeah. This is like, I cannot predict that.
Yeah, fair enough now. So, yeah, the general attitude seems to be that we're, like, generally the cryptocurrency community, including us, is generally open to approach this. Now, I think if we look at if we view it from the other side, from the perspective of the banks, what do we have to see there? If we want to try to get back to this when, we'd say, from the bank's perspective, not collaborating, but just doing something, it's almost impossible to find a major bank in this world at this moment who isn't somewhat involved in a blockchain project or has their own blockchain sub-department already. So there's a lot of happening. You could probably name any bank right now, and you would find something there. We already have, for example, the Marshall Islands. The Marshall Islands are, in the Pacific, a tiny group of thousands of islands. And what they decided to do is release their own national cryptocurrency. And obviously here are banks involved as well. So that's already happening. And at the same time, we see the crypto community is open, the banks are open, and approaching. At the same time, there's collaborations already. For example, in our case, Salamantex, we are an Austrian payment provider. We partnered up just recently with a German bank in order to enable the cryptocurrency payments there. So I think literally we can conclude from all sides there's willingness to make something happen, to have some to make some progress, and see whether it's going to be evolutionary or revolutionary. Cool. So I think pretty much then our approach to this is very aligned. The adoption of cryptocurrencies is happening already. We're all trying to make this possible. And, well, when is it going to happen? Let's say, looking back, it's probably already happening. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being on the panel tonight.
Great. Nice one.
Let's go.
Cheers, guys.